Mark Saltzman is one of North America's best-known and most trusted tech experts. He's authored 15 books and contributes regularly to the Toronto Star, CNN, MSN, Yahoo, and Gear Guide, which is screened on Cineplex movie theaters across the country. He joins me today to talk about his top 10 reasons why the wine industry needs to be fully engaged with social media. Mark, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Natalie. Great to chat with you.
All right, great. Before we dive right into that, maybe you can address first, Mark, the concern that a lot of small to mid-sized wineries have about social media, and that is they don't have the time to do it, or they don't have the budget to hire someone to do it. I'm sure a lot of other businesses feel this way too, but what do you say to that kind of a concern?
Yeah, so that's fair to say, both from a budget or from a resources standpoint. They feel, they understand that they should be in this new world, this connected, digital, and increasingly mobile world, but they don't know where to start. So I guess what I would suggest is, number one, you can dip your toe in instead of taking a deep dive. Put the feelies out with a couple of posts on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, whatever makes sense. And that leads me into my second tip, which is you don't have to be everywhere at once. Find out what social network makes sense for your business. If it's a very video-centric business, I believe we're talking a lot about wineries, so it really can go really in any direction. Just figure out which one makes sense to start at. And then there are some tools that can help leverage the other social media vehicles out there, in some cases in one fell swoop. So whatever you post to, say, Twitter also goes on Instagram and Facebook and vice versa. So, start small, but definitely start. Figure out where your audience might be and what social media vehicle is best for your business. Instead of, outsourcing this, which could be costly, and there are third-party companies that specialize in social media marketing, find someone within your organization that's already somewhat tech savvy, somewhat comfortable with social media, even on a personal level, someone you trust, and maybe it's one of the younger folks in your business who really gets it, and give them the responsibility, and then sort of just keep an eye on how they're handling things, because one of the benefits of social media is also one of the scariest, is that you're exposed and that everything is out there, and you want to make sure that they're representing your company, your vineyard, or what have you, your winery in a responsible and respectful way. So you don't need to have a degree in computer engineering to go on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and the like, and see how your company's being represented with internally. So that's just a quick tip, is to have somebody start you off small, and then should you get the budget and the need to expand, that's a different story altogether.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great idea, because a lot of the wineries do have younger people who are doing a stage or a work term in the cellar or in the vineyard. I'm sure that they're sort of with it with social media and would love to engage that way and share their experiences, especially as someone new to the winery. You mentioned that there are some tools that will share your various posts on many outlets of social media all at one fell swoop. Do you have a favorite tool that does that?
Yeah, so personally, and some say it's a faux pas that you shouldn't do this, but as a busy journalist, I hit Twitter first, and then what I do is, even within Twitter and Facebook, I allow for whatever I post to Twitter to show up as a Facebook wall post as well. Sometimes you can say it has to be only a new tweet and not a retweet, or no replies, only a brand new tweet. So you can sort of go in there and choose what makes sense. If you don't want to start with a third-party tool, some software that aggregates all of these social media sites together, you can even often do it internally. So that's what I do. Some purists say, sorry, Mark, whatever you post on Twitter, people on Facebook don't want to read it. They don't want to see hashtags and @signs and RT and all these things, and some people segregate also Facebook being a more personal touch, whereas Twitter is short and sweet. You're limited in the number of characters you can use. So I maybe perhaps break that rule just because I'm busy and I want to sort of paint with a broader stroke. So whatever I put on Twitter shows up on Facebook. Even though I have a lot of friends on Facebook that may not care so much about tech, I know I have a lot of followers who do care about it. So just look internally, and then if you don't want it, there are some other, great site services like TweetDeck, and there's a lot of different ones where you can, reach a number of social media platforms all at once.
So when you say look internally, Twitter allows you to do that, does it?
That's right. Twitter and Facebook allow it. Those are the two biggest ones, of course, but there's also, Pinterest, a more visual-centric social media where you're pinning photos. There's Instagram for photos and videos. Vine, which is owned by Twitter, which is short video clips. A lot of them allow sharing if it makes sense. Sometimes it's just text. Many other times it's photos, videos, and audio. Again, depending on who you're trying to reach and what you're trying to do on social media.
Sure. And keeping those parameters in mind, do you still think that Twitter and Facebook are really the two biggies, or is Google Plus coming up? Like, if wineries are going to focus?
I failed to mention Google Plus. There's a lot of them, right? And if we have this conversation a year from now, there may be some new ones too that are up and coming. I think Instagram just hit 200 million users. I mean, that came out of nowhere. So, definitely Google Plus is definitely a great place to start. If you're not sure which ones to go with, go to a popular website, and when you look at an article, you'll see some buttons that allow you to share it to your circle of friends. So often you'll see the biggies right there: Facebook, Twitter. And Google Plus are the big ones for text, for articles, and then of course for photos and videos there might be some other sites as well as Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus.
Okay, so I think we got to tip number 2 for your list. Do you have tip number 3?
So, well, the first tip is why. So I'd love to share with you, a few of my thoughts on why your business should be on social media, regardless of your business. And I know we're talking a lot about wineries and vineyards and other related industries. So number one is that's where people are congregating. So number one reason why you should be on social media is that's where people are hanging out online, where they're sharing, and where they're venting. So this is where you need to be. That's where people are hanging out. So if you want to reach a lot of people, which is one of the main reasons why people are on social media, then that's where you need to be.
And I would just say, Mark, for the wine industry, it's super critical, because I am noticing people are trading wine recommendations. It's pretty easy to encapsulate a wine pick in 140 characters, and more people are going to Twitter especially, but also Facebook, to find out, did you like that Cabernet? What did you pair with that Shiraz?
In the industry, this is definitely critical to be there, and so for sure, people are turning to social media often for advice, for help. Whether it's looking for a housekeeper or looking to recommend, a great bottle of red to complement some meat that you just bought because you're entertaining 2 or 3 couples on a Friday night. So definitely people love to go to Twitter or Facebook or Google Plus and other places to say, hey, and they're reaching out to their community by saying, what should I do? So that also lends me to my second tip on why you need to be on social media, or your business needs to be on social media. It's a bit of a cliche, but it's certainly true. And the answer is because your competition is there. So if you want to be there and you want to stay relevant and in the discussion, you need to be there, because whether it's the winery down the road or across the province or in another country or on another continent altogether, the web knows no borders. So you need to be there because everybody else is. So you want to stay relevant, you got to be there. So that's certainly tied to the first tip as well.
Absolutely. And what differentiates just having a website? Like, a lot of people say, well, I have a website. Isn't that enough? Why do I have to also do Twitter and Facebook and get out there on social media?
Because people aren't hanging out on your website. It's a destination place. It's like going to a big box retailer to buy a television. You don't just happen to walk by one. If you're going to like a Best Buy, it's a destination. You had to plan on going there, and you get out of your car and you walk in this place to buy that TV. You don't just happen to walk by it, because they're usually not in a place, unless it's in a strip mall, of course, but a lot of them are on their own somewhere. So it's not like a mall. Like a social media is like the mall, and your website is like a store out in the boonies kind of thing. So people are hanging out. It's a bit of a lame analogy,
No,
but
it's great. I like it.
you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
People are hanging out on Facebook, not just for your purposes. They're there to connect. It's all about connecting with your peers, getting information, gossiping, ranting or what have you. That's where people are congregating. They're not hanging out on your website. So that's the main difference. But you can of course link back to your website. You may be limited in what information you can share. Certainly with Twitter, you've got a character limit that's pretty small. So if you want to tell a bigger story, then you need to lure them out of Twitter and bring them to your website.
Perfect. Are we on tip number 3 now?
Sure. So tip number 3 on why your business needs to be on social media is simply for brand awareness. Whether it's a logo, whether you want to associate your winery with a particular season or holiday or something, it's all about your brand. And, it's a very valuable thing. So you need to promote your brand on social media. So and that's a great place to do it. You have control over it. You are, yes, people can, potentially write a bad review of your of a bottle that they bought from your winery, but you have more control there, and you get instant feedback. So it's all about your brand. It's about promoting your brand, and social media is a great place to be there for that.
And what about the whole fine line between promoting your brand and not being too commercial?
It is a bit of a strategy. I've been turned off a bit by people, I'll say, abusing Facebook, opposed to using Facebook to promote a company or a brand or a particular product. You don't want to hammer it so much to the point where they're going to unfriend you or they're not going to want to see your posts. You've got to take it. You've got to be there. You've got to stay relevant, but you can't just be pushing too hard. Some may disagree. I can think of anecdotally a couple of successful entrepreneurs who constantly are on Twitter with 500 posts a day, and I guess you can unfollow them if that's not your bag or if it's getting a little much. But I think there is such a thing as moderation, and you need to stay relevant. You got to find that fine line, as you talked about, and I think, by the way, you do a great job with that, Natalie, because you're very much involved in social media, but I never look at one of your posts and roll my eyes. It's actually at a right time, and it's like I don't know how you figured that out, but
cocktail hour.
right. So but it's all kidding aside. I do think there is something to that. You don't want to. I think less is more in some cases, but you can't be absent. Even if you need to take some time off. You can delegate somebody to represent you on social media, even if you need a bit of a break, because you can't really take a break, but you can't be too much as well. I think there is such a thing as too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, are we on tip number 4 now?
Tip number 4 is being on social media helps with customer retention. Of course, those who already like your stuff, you're developing a relationship with them. So it's basically, this is, retailing 101 is to develop a relationship. Your product may be just as good as somebody else's, but if they had a good experience and you're putting a person behind your product, someone that, you like, then that was, long before social media was invented, that was true. Some people might go and get a haircut from the same person, every month, even though they do an okay job, but they really love their hairstylist. They get along, they click, they know their family, that they know, and you're developing a relationship. And social media is a great place to do that. So,
I must say, I want to underscore what you're saying there too, Mark, because I'm finding more and more that people are not just buying wine, they're buying the person behind the wine, the story, right. And nothing's more popular than going to a winemaker's dinner. And how would you continue that? Social media would be a natural extension, or if someone has visited your tasting room, keep the relationship going.
And I can tell you, I've had people who have read my tech reviews of products and have slammed me publicly. They're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or, I read his video game review and he was so wrong in this thing. But then the minute I replied, they're like blown away that I replied, like I'm, that I'm like unreachable. But when you show that you are accessible and that you do understand what they're saying and you acknowledge it, like the whole mood changes in most cases. They're like, wow, thank you so much. I've been reading you for years, and I hope you don't mind that and I'm like, no, it's all good. And they're like, I can't believe you wrote me back. I'm like, it's no big deal. So I think it's great. So even if it's a negative thing, which a lot of companies are worried about in being social media, is you feel so exposed because everybody can say anything they want, right? And they can hide behind their monitor. They don't even have to use their real name. But if you address these issues professionally and in a timely manner, then then it really can have a reverse effect. Also, I was like flamed on Reddit last year, another not quite social media site, but yeah, people do congregate there, and yeah, it's social media. So anyway, somebody was flaming me. They didn't like my thing at the movies, and you can't please everybody, right? About 6.5, 7 million people see me every month. Not everyone's going to like your stuff. That's just how it goes. But when I joined the conversation and read all the comments they were making about me, which were mostly negative initially, and I joined in on the fun, it just the whole mood changed. That they're like, wow, usually when we make fun of people, they don't show up to the party. But with social media, it's important to be there, and you can turn around that negativity into something really helpful to your business. On the flip side, I know of an electronics retailer that set up a Facebook page, but they didn't manage it, and there were all these negative comments, and they let it sit there for like a month or two, and then people were writing back, with one comment after another saying, see, they don't even care. So it's really important to acknowledge, if you get negative feedback, to acknowledge it in a somewhat timely manner. Take the conversation offline if it's escalating, but definitely show everybody else that you aren't hiding, that you're there, and you want to be there for the customer. So definitely social media is a great place to do that.
Those are very powerful insights, Mark. Number 5, yeah. Yes, thank you.
Right, so number 5 is that social media evens the playing field. So I know so many examples of the little guy who made such a big impression in social media that it just turned around their sales so that they became the big guy. They used this new and exciting and powerful medium to even out the playing field. So I know that there are maybe some people watching this right now, they run a small winery, a very modest company, but if you use social media properly, this can really help your business. It can be a huge boon for your business. And you may, if the big guys don't recognize or appreciate the importance of social media, that's they're faltering, and then you can benefit on it by being socially relevant and culturally relevant by being on places like social media, because you're not afraid to be there, and it really can turn things around. So the 5th tip is that social media, again, a bit of a cliche, but it can be the great equalizer. And I know in the tech space, which is my expertise, there's been many examples of social media really helping us, the small guy out, and now they're not the small guy anymore. And I know that social media played a very big role in this company's huge boost in sales and in awareness and in relevance.
All right. Well, matching the nimbleness and agility of a smaller company to, it seems to be like a good fit with social media. Mark, those are excellent tips. We're going to come back for your next 5, but before we do, just remind us how we can find you on Twitter. You're at...
I'm actually not on social media. No, just kidding. I'm at Mark_Saltzman. That's MARC_ S like Sam, ALTZ in Canada, or Z in the US, man. SALTZMAN.
Great. And on Facebook, where are you?
Sure. So facebook.com/mark.saltzman. Again, that's MARC, S like Sam, ALTZ or TZMAN.
Great, and we'll post those links with this first part of our video.
Thank you. Great.
So thank you, and we'll be back with you soon to get those next 5 tips. A great conversation. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.